funding. Backers of Thames Water had been due to invest that money by the end of March. The company's chief executive, Chris Weston, has this message for anyone concerned about future supply.
It is very much business as usual at Thames Water, and we will continue to provide services to our customers throughout our region.
Well, the situation is reigniting some campaigns against privatisation. Joining us now is Kat Hobbs, the director of We Own It, which calls for the public ownership of services. Thank you very much for your time. Why should Thames Water be brought into public ownership?
Good afternoon, Simon. Well, public ownership is the normal way of running water in countries all around the world. 90% of countries have their water in public ownership. So does Scotland. And 7 out of 10 of us think water should be in public hands. And I think the scandal really around Thames Water that's being highlighted today shows everything that's wrong with water privatisation. This is a company that has given out £7 billion to its shareholders since privatisation. 25p in every pound that bill payers pay is going to service their huge debt mountain, which has been created so that they could give these dividends to shareholders. They're one of the worst companies for sewage, although all of them are very bad. They're leaking away around 1/5 of our water. And now they're saying, if we don't allow them to put up bills by 40%, allow them to keep taking dividends and let them off the hook for sewage, then they're out. You know, they've got what they wanted in dividends and they're out. So this is an unsustainable situation, and public ownership, permanent public ownership, has to be the solution.
So bringing it into public ownership then, how would that work in practice? Would it be that people who are customers of Thames Water, people in London and the surrounding areas, they own Thames Water, or would it be the wider UK?
So the government could use special administration powers to bring Thames Water into public ownership, either on the basis of insolvency or on the basis of performance. Both of those would work. And what we're arguing is that we need to have a new shadow water authority that actually works for the public. So who would be represented in that? Households would be represented, environmental groups would be represented, local authorities, workers and communities. So you would have a board of Thames Water that's actually holding Thames Water to account for cleaning up our rivers, for delivering affordable bills, and for actually doing what it says on the tin, providing our water, rather than prioritising its shareholders in Canada, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi and China.
The problem, as you've kind of gone into here, is the debt that Thames Water has piled up over the last couple of years. But it's accused the regulator, Ofwat, of making it uninvestable because it hasn't been able to raise bills to the level that it needs to get it back on a fair footing. Is that fair to criticise the regulator as well?
No. Not at all. I mean, finally, the regulator is actually standing up to Thames Water and saying...
LBC News. Weather.
Looking unsettled for London today. A few bright spells, but mainly wet and windy.
Apologies for that. That shouldn't have played there. But can you still hear us, Kat?
Yes, I can.
You can.
Yes.
Apologies for that. You were saying...
So Ofwat is being asked by Thames Water to be allowed to put up bills by 40%, to allow shareholders to keep taking dividends and to let them off the hook for sewage. So, of course, Thames Water shareholders should not be allowed to get away with this. And this highlights the fundamental problem, really. Shareholders have brought absolutely nothing to the table. Customers, households, we the public, we are the ones who are paying for all of the investment in water infrastructure. And what these privatised water companies do is they extract their dividends rather than allowing all of our money from our bills to go back into the infrastructure. So that's why we've got sewage flowing in our rivers and seas. That's why we've got pipes leaking, because actually so much money is going out of the country and into investors' bank accounts instead of being reinvested. So, of course, Ofwat should be standing up to Thames Water. We shouldn't let shareholders get away with these demands. But actually, Thames Water at this point has fundamentally failed. It's failed on performance, and it's going insolvent. You know, it's got an £18 billion debt mountain that it doesn't know what to do about, and all of us are paying for that right now. So why on earth wouldn't the government bring Thames Water into public ownership? And what we're saying is, don't wait for it to completely collapse and then bring it temporarily into public ownership. Bring it into permanent public ownership where it belongs and keep it there. And this should be the start of bringing all of England's water companies into public hands, because actually this experiment, this ideological experiment of water privatisation has failed. Water is a natural monopoly. You don't get a choice as a consumer. There is no market. And so these shareholders have us over a barrel right now. It doesn't make sense. We need to run water in public hands.
OK, thank you very much for your time. Kat Hobbs, you're director of We Own It, which campaigns for public ownership. 12:47 now on the Lunchtime LBC News. A 19-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder